Well, it's day two of MSI Groups. I'm joined right now by Chris Tran, who is the regional manager of.
Southeast Asia and Greater China, which includes Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau.
Okay. There you go. So, like, quite a lot of different stuff. Of course, this coverage is brought to you by Alienware. So, a little bit of context on this interview. I met Chris. It feels like 2 years ago, but maybe it was only a year ago. We were trying to figure this out earlier. And at the time, you were doing a lot of stuff in Vietnam. You were kind of heading up the Vietnam stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely correct. I went to South by Southwest, and I was super excited to meet you, right? And I was like, I have to come up with a reason for this guy to come to Vietnam, right? And so then, like, the little mice in my head started running around the hamster wheel, mice on a hamster wheel, and then like somehow I got lucky.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be here. I mean, I'm really enjoying Vietnam, but I know that you work on, or you now handle a lot of these different countries and different regions. But specifically, since we're in Vietnam, and I feel like Vietnam is like a rising star in the League of Legends esports world. Maybe you can talk to me a little bit about the region. When did it really start to take off with League of Legends here and on the esports side?
Um, I think it was always like kind of an unpolished gem, but like I guess the polish started happening about 2, 3 years ago. Like externally, it would be that like the legendary match between GAM and TSM at MSI like a couple of years ago, and then so we kind of were lucky in that we were able to build like a physical facility, GG Stadium in Ho Chi Minh City. We're able to show that Vietnam had the strength to be independent from the GPL, and so as our talent gets recognized just in international events, but also with SOFM, who did quite well in China, and Levi, who has been exported to different markets, et cetera, and hasn't quite the same success. It's like a perfect storm of opportunities, right? And I've been lucky to be able to like nudge and push a little bit in different ways to make the most of those opportunities.
How did the audience, or what's the sort of the story with the esports viewership here? And not necessarily by the numbers, but I just mean like when did league fans in Vietnam really start watching esports? Were they previously watching Vietnam, or did that really start to take off once you guys established your own league? Like, what's sort of the story there?
It's funny, but for the longest time, before the age of Faker, the most popular esports player for Vietnamese people was Hai.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. Like there was a time when you could just be on the streets and you would see like people with like these I wouldn't say counterfeit, but not official merchandise of Cloud9 floating around because they're like some of the old school Cloud9 players, Reggie, etc. They're also similar to me in that they're also like of Vietnamese background, so that when you're a Vietnamese person here, dreaming big of international success, hoping that somebody recognizes you for all the hard work and discipline that you have in something that you love, and you look across the ocean and you see like a high or like I always say, Lemonation is also Vietnamese, but he's not. He's
Well, he
not.
did. He
Only
came
on his
over
mother's
here,
side.
but he came over here with High on that big trip. I know, and that was probably part of it too. I feel like a lot of fans here were really into Lemon at that time as
Yeah,
well.
and like Garena, our partner, during that time, before the VCS was actually a VCS, they would spend like 24 hours streaming all of the games they could. So they would like stay up in midnight to like stream like LCS games, like NA LCS back then, and then like some EU games and LPL and LCK games all the way through, so that Vietnamese people got exposed to as much esports as they could, and then like I think esports is very democratic, so that like poor countries and rich countries can all compete on equal footing, and like the Vietnamese kind of mentality isn't a why, but a why not, right? Like if they can do it, why can't we? And it's always kind of like struggling to like show that like with hard work and dedication that we actually can be impactful.
Now, I've heard crazy stats. I don't know if you guys have ever talked about this, and I don't expect you to if it's not something you can't, but it does sound like Vietnam is a pretty huge region with a ton of players. You know, like I've heard rumors of some huge percentage of people under the age of like 30 or something have a League of Legends account. So is it safe to say League is really huge in this country?
I use the phrase rite of passage. Like I feel like when you get to a certain age and your older brother or your older cousins or the kids in older grades are start playing League of Legends and games of that ilk to show that you're no longer a kid, right? And then like there was also a period of time where like your social status in a way was defined by how good you are, right? But I don't think that that's just a Vietnam thing. I think that's like kind of a universal thing with people who really care about being good at a specific thing, right?
So, but I mean, it does seem like, I mean, we were going down to Halong Bay, and I'd see like gaming cafes on the side of the road with League of Legends stuff out in on the front of it. So it does feel like it's a pretty big game here in Vietnam.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and um, like it's a way of life here, right? And like I think generationally, like this is the game that will define this generation of young kids.
That's so great to hear, and probably a part of the reason why we're starting to see Vietnam teams perform really well on the international stage. Yeah.
Oh, I think to have competitive success, you have to have a pretty good talent base and also an organizational maturity, right? And you have great markets that have both. I think Vietnam, we have a pretty great talent base now, but the organizational maturity and just the like age and maturity of our own athletes is not quite there yet. But certainly we are reaching that hockey stick part where hopefully we can like continue to like maybe surprise and delight like the people internationally who pay attention to us.
What does it mean for Vietnam to have this event happen? Because it seems like it's been pretty packed in the arena the whole time.
So I think Southeast Asia as a whole is really starting to embrace esports, right? Like last year in 2018, esports was a part of the Asian Games, right, as an exhibition event. And also Riot, we organized an ASEAN esports event, which was supported by the Singapore government. So ASEAN representatives came to Singapore in 2018 for an event called Hyperplay. 2019 we have MSI here, but also in 2019 we have esports at the SEA Games in the Philippines. But for Vietnam as a country, like there's MSI this year. Next year F1 comes to Vietnam, and then the year after that the SEA Games come to Vietnam. So the getting Vietnam being able to be put at the forefront of international sports, where it's like esports, F1, the SEA Games. It's a great narrative for Vietnam, and I think that like everybody in the nation's really pushing forward. For the fans, it means that they get to be recognized and be part of like the community versus being kind of like an ostracized, oh, mom and dad just don't get what I do kind of situation, which also is universally painful, I think.
Yeah. The Vietnam fans, who are the people that you think they tend to root for, like the big names internationally, outside of this region?
Well, I like to think that there are more SKT fans in Vietnam than there are in Korea, right? Because it's like a whole nation that accretes, and like the real question is, are there more SKT fans than there are Phong Vu Buffalo fans? And like that game is in about an hour, so we'll find out, right? Like I said, there are a lot of C9 fans, there are a lot of TSM fans, right? Like as like key players in NA, like we're super excited that Double Lift is here, because he's also one of those like great giants that like Vietnamese people tend to follow. Right. I'm going to admit I don't follow LEC as much as I should.
None of us do. Yeah, no, that's fine. Peter or Doublelift was telling me that even at the hotel that he's staying at, a lot of the staff members are like fans of his, is what he's discovering.
Oh, that's fantastic, right?
Well, is there anything that you want to say to any of the people out there that are watching this interview and are starting to really realize like how big of a thing League is in Vietnam and sort of the growth that we'll start to see more and more of on the international stage?
Well, I'm not going to take credit, but I'm going to take a little bit of credit, right? I'm always excited because whenever people think of the VCS, it's not just about a new region. It's about a new region with a specific kind of play style, right? And like every time you hear, like tropes saying like they play your own way, play your own style, Vietnam is not only doing that, we're finding a little bit of success there, and I hope that other regions and other teams, etc., continue to think that way, right? Because there's so much breadth and depth to League of Legends that there really is a lot of different ways to win, and I think it'd be kind of naive to think that like only one region or two regions can optimize immediately, right? So like if we can, everybody thinks about how we can innovate and like come up with new strategies and metas, and then like it comes all crashing together at events like MSI. That's super exciting, right? And so looking forward to see like how new metas and strategies develop. I love the fact that Vietnam also has our own set of rivals that is not not like EU, NA, or LCS, LEC, or like LPL, LCK, but we also have our own roster of rivals, which is also great because esports is a global kind of experience, and we want to continue pushing that forward.
Who would you say are the rivals, or what are the rivalries here?
I don't know. Did you watch Planes? It's it's pretty much Turkey and and the LCL, right? Right, like those are our main rivals. And unfortunately, remember, I'm also like LMS is also one of my regions. So the VCS and the LMS are also rivals too. And I'm really also hoping that LMS is able to come to Taiwan and host everybody there, like Vietnam, like the VCS, like Phongvu Buffalo is able to come here to Hanoi. But the competition's really tough, and every team here is out to prove something for this MSI.
Hey, thank you so much for the interview. Looking forward to seeing more of what Vietnam accomplishes on the international stage soon, and the rest of your regions, of course, as we focus on Vietnam. But
Let's
I know
talk about LMS in Taiwan. Don't worry about it. Right? Go Flash Wolves.
Thanks so much for the interview, man. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel. Our search for the secret of North America's success continues here in Halong Bay. But I do want to give a shout out to Alienware for commissioning and sponsoring this trip and so much more. You might not know this, but our entire fleet is being run off of Area 51M computers. We're using advanced algorithms to try to triangulate and locate the secret treasure that's somewhere out here. We're also playing AAA games with incredible frame rates and all sorts of esports titles, including League of Legends in the evenings, because there's a lot of downtime when the sun goes down. You can't do. It's amazing. Anyway, check them out. Dell.com/Travis.